Yo, hello everybody. It's a Monday night, and we are here streaming with the Doctor of Dialogue. Welcome, Doctor of Dialogue.
Thanks, Sammy.
Laurie Mulvey. It's nice to have you here, and it's nice to have this conversation. I've been wanting to have this conversation, and the knucklehead that I am, I'm going to take an incredibly complex and delicate conversation and do it online in front of the whole world.
And I have no idea what we're talking about.
No, you have no idea. So
I reserve the right to remain silent.
No, except that you never will, because that's why we're together. You won't remain silent. So it's going to be it's going to be difficult for me to read the chat and sustain the conversation. But when Laurie's talking, I'll try to do that. So Laurie, here's what I'd like to talk about. In this time right now, when we've been together. Let's say something about our relationship.
Okay,
right?
wait. And here's one thing that we can say about our relationship, which is just by me asking you this question. Did you realize that if I knew what the topic was, I wouldn't have this conversation with you? Is that why you didn't tell me?
No, I thought that it was just better if we didn't think about
If
it.
it was spontaneous.
Yeah, it's just kind of fun.
Okay. All right.
So,
okay. So but us.
Yeah.
What do you want to say?
Okay. So anyway, I have this thought that well, first off, can we say a few things about us? So we've been together. We met in 1986.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost 40 years ago.
Oh my God, that's crazy.
You were 21. I was 25.
You have to give all the data?
Well, okay. We were younger then.
Everyone can do the math.
All right. And we were drawn to each other because, we're both trying to figure out the world. We were pretty committed to that. And part of, we pretty early on, it was clear we probably weren't going to have children. And then at some point in time, that really got taken off the table. And so we have the one thing that has sustained, that is just that one thread that has gone through our relationship for sure and has never left, is our dedication to trying to figure out the world, how it works and why it works in the way that it does. Could you just say something about that? Like what you saw in me, and I'll say, because this is really important for the conversation that we're going to have today.
I saw you not as trying to figure out the world, although maybe I would have thought that if you asked me that question at the time, Mm-hmm. I think I saw you as a really good listener. You certainly blew my mind open about the world. I didn't realize it, when I first met you, but you did, because you were studying things and exploring things that were completely unknown to me. I do think that we kept talking and talking and talking. There was no end to the talking, which was exploring a lot of different things, which we continue to do. It keeps getting more complicated, and I don't know what else I could say about that. But anyway, you were just a profoundly good listener, which meant you were also really able to see things through other people's eyes so amazingly. It used to make me laugh a lot.
Oh, that's the kind of foundation of empathy, actually, I suppose, right?
Yeah.
We didn't call it that, but
no, we didn't call it that. But you could just see the world. So and then for me, it was humorous what you knew, or
what I could sense about people. Yeah, and so for me, the same thing. You were a really good listener, and you asked really good questions about the inner journey. I was more focused on the outer sociological journey, and you the inner journey. Mm-hmm. So you provoked.
I didn't even know what sociology was.
Yeah.
I mean, you were I took your class when you were a grad student and I was a senior, and that was the only sociology class I ever took.
Yeah. Well, the irony is, so I have this a TED Talk called "The Wisdom of Sociology," and that I did down in Brazil, actually. I don't know when, back in 2015 or 2016 or something. Anyway, that it's about the sociological imagination. And strangely, I had taught maybe about the sociological imagination, maybe, I don't know, 3 different intro classes by the time. At some point, Laurie and I were reading in my room, and she was reading an intro text that I was using, and she was reading about the sociological imagination. I talked about it a few weeks ago with the suicide example in office hours. Anyway, Laurie said, "Wow, this is really fascinating." And I said, "Well, what is it?" And you said, "Well, the sociology is really fascinating." And I didn't know. And then you explained the sociological imagination and your way of seeing it, as an outsider. And light bulbs went on for me. And that was my beginning, truly, of studying sociology. So, yeah.
That's
so there
funny.
you go. I thank you for that. In any case, we've been, I will say, pretty committed to getting to truth. Laurie always had this idea. You had this idea that there is a truth, and I always said there wasn't a truth.
No, I didn't have the idea that there was a truth actually at all. I think I developed the idea that there has to be something true. But I don't even know. Anyway, I won't go down the rabbit hole right now, but yeah, we exchanged back and forth the positions on that idea, but I do think I'm always seeking something more true than what is in front of me or what people are telling me is true. Not because I'm trying to be contrarian, but just because I want to know.
I think you do have we both have a little bit of a contrarian streak in us, and we also have a little bit of an iconoclast streak. Me much more so than you. Well, me definitely, but yeah. But
that doesn't come from, I don't know. I mean, I think that's an interesting thing to talk about because I think some people have that as a personality characteristic, and it has different implications or different motivations. But I think to the extent, at least that I am, some of it comes from being betrayed, not by any individual, but by what I was told life was, or, who's in charge and who to be trusted and who's the authority and who knows things. And, I've been endlessly disappointed, that is betrayed, throughout my life. So I think it's more of a skeptic in me. Like, is that really what's true? Are you really, I have to keep uncovering until I can see somehow for myself what's more true than the ways that I was taught what was true. So.
And going along with that, and again, we're going to get to this conversation we're going to have, but I feel like it's really good if there's a little bit of a background. We're both from the working class, and there's just a way in which, when you're from the working class and you're working really hard and you feel like the playing field is more or less even, because if you work really hard, you're gonna get somewhere and you're gonna get ahead, and you can even do really well if you're here in the United States. And of course, that's true to a degree, right? But we're from the working class, and the more we kind of learned about the world and the more we saw what was going on, the more that greater sort of that sense of betrayal kind of grew in us as we began to learn about the vast differences in wealth and opportunities.
But also in a more subtle way, I think the reason that we talk a lot about or refer to being from the working class is because spending time at a university, or this university anyway, we encounter so many people that are from the upper middle class and above, and without realizing it, I have learned how differently I approach things and think about things than people who've had, I don't know, parents, grandparents, legacies of college graduates and careers and professionals, and it's just such a different thing to grow up in a town where my friends' parents were, plumbers. My dad was an electrician. Masons. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's just a different way of thinking and a different way of being in the world, and that has been so a big part of.
Hey, wait, hang on. Can you look at your mic?
Can I look at my mic?
Yeah, is it on? Do you have bars?
Nope.
All right, hang on. Hold on. Hold on, hang on.
It's on, but there's no, looks like it's almost no battery.
There we go.
Is that a bad battery?
Yeah, it must be a bad battery. Here we go. There's that. Oh man, you only got one right there. Hold on.
There we go.
All right.
It's crazy.
Back in the game. Okay, so there we go.
At what point did it stop?
Well,
working?
let me just. I'm gonna go back to this idea. Eric said something in the chat about also being white, and I think that we, at some point in time, we really did the race dive, and also, our work was very much dedicated to race. Understanding race, understanding culture, understanding, very much what it means to be white. As I started teaching this 119 class, so I was 30 years old, you were 26, that became really significant for us. And then understanding the working class from within that. So, but we never gave up on class. Like a lot of times people leave social class behind, and we don't because of that. If we were middle class, upper middle class, maybe we'd have done a deep dive in race, but we always had sort of one foot out into the world of class, and then of course gender.
We did do a deep dive and continue. I mean, it's very much a part of what we encountered and learned about and explored deeply with other people, with people who were different from us, right? Not white, but it's just hard to miss the things that are, meeting lots of people, Black people in particular, whose families were really educated families and
really rich.
Yeah, and I grew up, in Newark, New Jersey, with the idea that Black people were poor because those are the people I was surrounded with, because we also were those people, right? And then I came to a university and whatever, doesn't, all the details of that don't matter exactly, except that I started not started, but the more and more of encountering people who didn't fit that simple idea of rich white people and poor Black people, to make it overly simplistic. And it's like, wait, and so I can go on and on about the profoundness of that, but that's just part of how it's the architecture of me.
The architecture of you, and I think then also the architecture of our relationship, it really helped frame that we really work together to ensure that one of us doesn't leave anything behind, So I think it's kind of this thing that we're always like we're going down a road together, and one of us gets ahead and then the other one gets ahead, but we're always sort of watching. And one of us will go off here on a side road and come back, and the other one will go off. But
You're
we're
talking
always
about how we think about things.
Yeah, it's just we're always checking each other. We're always trying to be really just carefully calculating and thinking about it, and bringing each other, like challenging one another in a way that has been very, very important. And now, of course, it's very important for the conversation I want to have. But one final thing before I do,
I got to get to this conversation.
Yeah, well. The other piece, just about you, so I've had this, been teaching this class, and, the legacies, tens of thousands of students have gone through the class. So I've, really had an impact on people, and I take it very seriously, how I do that and how I think about it and how I challenge people and don't challenge people. But you have been running World in Conversation, and so, this, at one point was the largest facilitator training program in the world based at a university. You were training 120, 140, 150 facilitators every year and running, 3,000 dialogues a year. And, for you, that was, you take that very seriously. You are training people. Can you just say in like 40 seconds, like just we'll come back and talk about it on another day, but you just like say why it's important, what we're talking about, kind of challenging and thinking clearly and so on. Why is that important for training facilitators?
the main thing that I mean, we're wondering what the word is: mediator, facilitator, connector, weaver, conductor. There's so many ways to talk about the person who stands in the middle of opposing ideas and helps people to functionally address those issues and ultimately to create solutions with opponents, is what I say. And so so basically what someone has to learn, and it takes time, is a different mindset, because we all have this dualistic way of thinking, and this is right, this is wrong, this is good, this is bad, this is hot, this is cold. And nobody does this explicitly, but the process of being trained to be a bridge person, I would say, is that the necessity of developing a mindset where you don't see in binaries. You actually see the relationships between people, and the fact that everybody has a piece of the truth, and there's the fighting over the truth, the different pieces doesn't make sense. You want to put the pieces together into a puzzle that is full, not just your side, their side, whatever. So anyway, so it's a complicated business to develop facilitators, bridge people. It's not just a weekend workshop, learn a few communication skills. It's actually a change of mind. And I don't mean like you become a liberal or you become a conservative. Absolutely not. You actually become the person that can stand in between and find the truth in not the middle ground, but the way in which
taking both sides.
No, taking sides. Taking sides is just a gesture that someone has to hold when they're intervening in a group of people, but because you have to be on everyone's team, sort of like a referee, right? You're on everyone's team.
And nobody's team.
And nobody's team, right? But you're on Team Truth, right? Like that's it. That's the team that you're on. I kind of lost my point.
Okay,
right there, but that's the work.
Okay, so this then takes us to our conversation that I want to have. Mm-hmm. We're in some really, really critical times right now. You and I have been talking about history and how, are we reproducing history at some level? We both know that things could just go sideways really fast. I mean, they've already, at some level, they're going sideways, but they could really just go down.
Everybody know. We all know where we are in this moment.
Okay.
So,
how do you? You're so dedicated to. You and I have fought over this a lot. There were times when I was trying to take sides and bring activism into some aspects of our work, and I'm going back now, 10, 12, 15 years, and you just were holding the line so hard. How are you doing that right now? Like, how are you holding, again, not a middle ground, but just holding a space where nobody is? Like, you are really on your own in so many ways, right? How are you doing that? Like,
curiosity more is the only thing.
Uh-huh.
Maybe it's not the only thing, but it's pretty deep. Because it's not difficult to be curious when I realize how much I don't know about so many things, right? So I was just listening to a podcast, and there was audio of President Trump in the 80s talking about China and his concern about China and trade. And I was thinking, what was I thinking about in the 1980s? It was certainly not trade with China. So that just, all I'm saying is just it's a tiny example, and there is an immense number of those examples on a daily basis of realizing that someone, some group, some factor is something that I know nothing about. And so to just immediately have positions about things is so tempting, especially when you're just be like, I'm against everything that group stands for, or, et cetera. Or I'm just for all these things that they're against. To me, it's so much, much, much deeper than that. And that's it. That's so curiosity to say, well, wait a second, what's going on here? And wait, how do these people see it? And wait, how do they see it? And how do they see it? And that maybe to some people just sounds like, oh yeah, you can just keep being curious the rest of your life while everything burns down. But I don't think that's how I'm living either. You know, it's like you get sick or somebody's sick, and this has happened to us, as it's happened to most people, and you're profoundly ill, and the best thing you can do is quickly be figuring out as much as you can figure out about that disease so you can do your best to manage it. I mean, that's what it feels like right now, right? But my point is there's so much noise, you know, in terms of like the righteousness of what's true and what's not true. That to me is noise. I don't want to hear people. I don't want to hear people talking about how they're the winner or how someone else is the loser. So whenever I have a whiff of that, I want to put that aside. I really want to hear, and I love to listen for ideas that and things that are true that I don't know about, and I don't think it's hard to find them.
So how do you? Okay, the curiosity. What I'm hearing is a deep curiosity and a humility in the spaces where you understand that you don't know,
which are vast.
Yeah, and then when you have somebody like Trump who clearly is thinking, you said in the 80s, I should say, you and I both encountered Trump in the 80s because you're from New Jersey and I moved to New Jersey, and he was such a blowhard back then, man. If you weren't around in New York, New Jersey area in the 80s, you just don't understand who this guy was. This is way before.
Well, that's kind of how I think that's just how the vibe.
No, people didn't know him. If you're not from the New York, New Jersey area.
I agree with you. I'm just saying that when you said blowhard, I think that's kind of how people saw it. I think that was kind of the common way.
Just this guy.
A guy that's building casinos and putting his name on it. I mean,
just so.
That doesn't mean that that's the right way to think about it, but that is definitely how he was thought of.
And so when you encounter somebody like that, it's really easy to just sort of write them off. But what you're saying is, hey, this guy, he was thinking about this China question in the 80s long before other people were thinking about it, right? And so you if you bring your own humility into this, you say, well, I gotta hang on a second. What did I miss? What have I not been thinking about for 40 years? And then you bring that to the table, and then you just be silent.
Well, and also I mean that's just the example that happened 10 minutes ago, literally. But I can't believe like Sam and you and I went to the first time we were part of a NATO conference. When it was in 2013, maybe? No, 2015, around then, okay?
Yeah.
We went, and our job was to facilitate. They needed people to moderate this conference they were having that was hybrid at the time. Mm-hmm. And I was, for 3 days, we sat and listened, and first of all, wow, we didn't know their acronyms. There was so much we didn't know. But by the end of the weekend, or the 3 days, I was like, am I sitting in a room of social workers?
Yeah.
Because here are these people, decorated people and special operations people, and they were talking about things like the ambassador soldier and all these things that I could laugh at myself now because many people know that those are conversations that are happening in a military institution. But for me, it was like, I didn't know people in the military talked about how much we need to be able to negotiate, interpersonally with people, when you're a soldier, and that's the ideal. I was like, wait, wow. So anyway, it happens. So why I'm saying that is because there are so many institutions that I'm not institutions.
Yeah.
Organizations of people over time that are working in ways that I have no idea, and they're very thoughtful, and they're anyway. And so how could I not sit back and say, okay, Laurie, what can this person tell you? Because a farmer, I'm not a farmer. I don't know how to grow crops. I don't know how to milk cows. I don't know how to climb telephone poles and hook up electrical power for people. Like, I could name so many more things that I know nothing about than that I know anything about. So to me, it is not hard to be curious.
Yeah. You know, right now, I find myself with all these proclamations that are being made. They're coming out of Washington, or coming out of the White House, I should say. Or somewhere, Mar-a-Lago, I don't know, who knows, a golf course somewhere, I don't know where they're coming out of. But with each one, I ask myself, wait, hang on. I'll say like, that sounds really crazy. And then I stop and I say, wait, hang on, but why does it sound crazy? Like what's crazy about it? I give myself, I force myself to stop. And I'm finding, are you doing the same thing? Just constantly forcing yourself to not, to stop and say, wait, hang on, what do we really think? What do we really know about X, Y, or Z?
Yeah, and it's not a new experience for me at all. And so I'm feeling pretty destabilized and upside down or sideways every day recently. So it's not that I'm somehow immune from what a lot of other people are just kind of feeling like, wait, what is the road that we're on right now? Can we just get on a road? So it's not that I am also impacted by all of this and what's being funded and what's not being funded. But I just had the experience of growing up, or just because of what I'm sensitive to or what I pay attention to, where I would oftentimes, like I'm sure many people, you're in your family and your sibling is, got mad at your mom for something, and you hear what he or she says, and you're like, yeah, exactly. And then you go talk to your mom and she's like, well, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, well, yeah, of course. Why is he or she being such a jerk, right? And you might stop there, but I was always like trying to bring that together and be like, okay, Mom, you said this, blah, 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 blah. And so this doesn't seem, it seems unusual to me that people don't really do that. Let's just put the pieces together. Come on, come together. So that's just how I'm built. And so this is just, monumental what's happening, our entire country, our world. It's like, half of 350 million people are crazy to the other half, and I'm like, that's not true. There are crazy people, and crazy is kind of what gets our attention, and we just keep feeding ourselves that all the time. But talk to individual people, without an attitude, right? Because a lot of people approach people in their family with, anger or upset or heartbreak or whatever, and it's not going to get the response that you're hoping for because they're going to be defensive, etc. So anyway, I'm saying, we all know real people in our families or friendship groups that we're like, well, they're real people, but I think they're effing crazy. But I'm also saying that there's a lot of it's like a powder keg between people that are close too.
So are you feeling, to what degree are you feeling like you really you need to jump in right now?
Jump in what?
Just jump in to try to move this ship in a positive direction. Okay, I'm going to say it like that.
Yeah, that's a way to.
Okay, so A, what's the positive direction? B, what's the ship? C, what could you possibly do? But nonetheless, people are doing that.
The
right?
Positive direction is creating functional relationships between people. And for me, the unit of analysis, if you will, or the focus is on small groups of people. And because small groups of people are powerful in both dysfunctional, right? We think groupthink and conformity and whatever, that's powerful. But what I have seen in my work throughout my life is the power, the creative mind that evolves when you have a functional group of people, because suddenly you don't have one mind, you have 10 minds. And when those fuse together functionally in a healthy way, that's power. So anyway, that's the what is it, the right direction? The right direction is functional relationships between people, and I could say it's extremely dysfunctional right now at every level.
So What are you, so for me, let me just say a few things about myself right now. I keep going into my class as you know, you haven't been watching the class so much this semester, but you get it. Like, what I'm doing.
I see things.
You see things. I keep going in. I'm doing the same thing. I'm trying to help my students to be better thinkers than they are each time they come in.
To be discerners.
Discerners. I'm not taking stands. I'm not saying to anybody what I think about what's going on in Washington, the U.S. government, et cetera. Donald Trump. They don't know what I think about Trump.
But you are taking the stand. You're taking a stand for I don't know, nonpartisanship or. Oops, my friend Will. You're taking a stand for education, for discernment, for thinking, for equanimity, for not assuming people are your enemies. Like, those are stands, and those are not ones that are pick one. Here's this stand or that stand, but that's a very powerful and dangerous, actually, stand.
Why is it dangerous? Like,
it's dangerous because you don't have allies. Because most people want one side or the other, right? I mean, really, like, we just had the Super Bowl. Does it really matter who won the Super Bowl? Yes, it does to a lot of people. And the feeling of rooting for one side is just so intoxicating. It's so intoxicating.
Yeah.
We love it. And you and I, and so you and your class are standing up there and saying, "Don't root for one side, guys. I mean, just come on. We got to be on all sides." And that just sounds like no. I mean, I can make some of the chants that sounds like, but no. That's so. In other words, you're left alone. You're standing alone. That's what's. And in these times in particular, that you can be a target. That's what's dangerous about it to me. Beyond the fact that it just doesn't feel that great to not be like on a team.
No, I feel really lonely sometimes. I was looking at some of the photos from the downtown State College. We had our students poured out into the streets last night when the Eagles won.
As did half of Philadelphia.
Yeah, and Philadelphia, right? So I was looking at a lot of the photos and videos from Philly and from here in town. We're just a little town in the middle of Pennsylvania, but people were so happy. They were just so happy. They don't even know each other. They're strangers. They might be enemies and fighting each other at some point. But in that moment, they were all wearing green and they all felt really, really happy. And so I was thinking, wow, that I felt like I wish I could root for a sports team, even a Penn State team.
Or any team.
Any team at all, but any team at all. And feel really, really good about it. And feel that intoxication of connectedness with other people and, kind of losing myself and the feeling of something larger than me, that really David Holloway used to talk about that, our friend from Northern Ireland, but I don't have that, and sometimes when I'm in my class, I feel really alone. I feel like, and I don't know if I'm doing the right thing. Is this good? Is this what I should be doing? Is this like?
Remember that one time there was this one time in Social 19. And it was in, what year was it? 2011 with the terrible Sandusky scandal. And it was right at the beginning of that time when all the news was breaking and nobody at Penn State knew what was happening. And Sam and I were both in Social 19 and just kind of hearing from students because they were so destabilized and upset and nobody knew what was going on.
And we were you should say, that was the first time the first place anyone at Penn State spoke out publicly about the scandal.
And all we were doing was talking to students about how they were experiencing it, really, right? And just trying to say a few things about we were not taking a stand on anything because we didn't know anything.
No, it was really very much a listening session more than anything.
But at the end of that, this is, again, what we just said about ourselves and teams, and you can imagine we're not, at the football games. But at the end of that, so if you're a Penn Stater or Penn State, there's this "We Are" chant that people do at games and lots of places. Well, anyway, at the end of this class, which was really heartbreaking and powerful, and students were so off balance, we did this "We Are" chant. The whole room of Social 19 was saying, "We are Penn State." Right now, everyone who watches the class knows what a mix of people that would be at odds with each other in so many ways on whatever the issues are. All a united voice in that moment. It was so powerful and so, I don't know. We didn't know if you had to be in that moment to know that was the right thing to do. Like, how weird to have like a school chant in a moment when we were talking about this terrible scandal.
Yeah.
But anyway, that was a moment where we really felt the power of being on the same team, and I don't know if we could just be on Team Human. You and I would probably be on Team Human. I don't know, maybe we wouldn't, but anyway.
Well, there's something for us. I mean, we both travel. We have friends all over the world. It's hard for us. We have friends in places that a lot of people don't have friends, right? I mean, just loved ones, people who we love really deeply. So and we're both sociologists. I mean, you technically don't have any degrees in sociology, but you're very much a sociologist. And it's just, in a way, it's just easier. It's harder. It's harder to pick any team, because if I'm on one team, then I'm against another team. It almost is. It just is like that. But I have to say, if I could say that, I keep struggling right now a little bit, because I feel like I don't know if what I'm doing, just continuing to help students in the way that I do, right, and then post things on YouTube videos and stuff. I don't know that it's enough, and I don't know if it's. I just don't know.
And we never do know. I always say, as you mentioned, we're not parents, but it's the perfect example of, you get to a place in your life where you're adult enough to have a child, to bring another life into the world, and you have no idea what to do, and you don't know what you're going to face, and what you face is going to be unique to your child and that moment, and there are no clear answers about what is the right thing to do, how to be a parent, what this child needs versus the next child. And yet that is the structure of reality, right? Parents become parents, and they do not know how to be parents until they're done being a parent. Maybe then some of them are like, oh, this is what I should have done. But try and apply that to another child, and it will be different. And so I just think there's something about the structure of life itself that doesn't prepare us to know what to do before we get to wherever we are. And I think we have to lean into that and not try to be smarter than what we are, and not pretend that we know better. I'm saying some people could say, well, yeah, the bridge needs to be fixed in this way, and if it's not, it's going to fall down. Okay, great, you know that. That's not where we mostly are in things that are so complicated, and so many factors are coming together in this moment, historical and and I'm not going to name all of them, but just meaning like things from the past, things from the future, things of the present, different groups of people, trade, culture, technology, whatever. There's no. So I don't know, Sam, when you say, I feel like I should be doing more, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, maybe it's just that
I'm not disrespecting the feeling, because I don't think you're alone in that feeling. And I think when we see, just going back to sorry, I know I interrupted, but going back to your earlier analogy, like, okay, which way should the ship be going, right? Like, you're not in control of the ship, first of all, right? So, but so when you're like, I wish I could do more. Yeah, you wish you could get the steering wheel, if you could. then you'd be doing more, but you can't. And so I think it's really what makes this time so difficult, because I think we've all been doing different things, and I think we just don't know how to be a part of all the changes that are happening, good, bad, or indifferent.
Yeah, I think also, I just don't know if I'm getting it right, if I'm reading the tea leaves correctly.
Yeah, you're probably not.
Oh.
How could you? You can only read
Wait, hang on.
Wait.
I just want to think about how dumb that statement is that I just made. I don't know if I'm getting it right. Of course I'm not getting it right.
Because there's so many parts. You know what I mean? I think we can only, at the very, very best, get ourselves right, which is even its own quest, right? But I mean, can we just be in alignment with what we've been given to be in the world?
Yeah.
And if we can do that, we are winning.
Yeah.
And this time challenges that in so many ways, and I think it challenges for people who think in kinds of spiritual ways, whatever. I think it brings our egos, if you will, to the front, to be like, what is Laurie going to offer? Like, I don't know, some great spirit, give me my operating instructions. Tell me what to do. I'll do it, but you're not. So how is that my fault or any of our faults? I really feel compassion for humans all the time when we are given such complex and sad things to face all the time with no clear direction from something higher than ourselves.
I feel that. I mean, I think that. Sometimes when I put classes together, I feel so uplifted. Like this week, I have Thursday's class. I put it together this coming Thursday, and I'm like, oh, okay, I really like this, and I felt really good. I worked on it all day yesterday, and you know how that is for me, right? I feel very uplifted, but at the same time, I feel so lost.
God, so small, probably.
I feel so small.
I mean, we keep saying talking about ourselves as molecules, because really, that's what we are, and yet we're so, each of our lives feels so significant and insignificant at the same moment. That's just too much for this human brain.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Really, like we really should need to give ourselves so much more compassion. Anyway, but back to is this what we're talking about?
Well, this is it. I mean, my biggest thing is that, I've really been kind of interested with you about how you're managing, how you're able to just kind of keep going, doing, the work that you do and holding people to the center. I don't know. I'm not really sure what you do, but people.
You're not really sure what I do. That's like the most.
Well, I don't know what metaphor to use, right? It's like people, because you're in the space of working more one-on-one or in small groups, and you watch people sort of have meltdowns. You got to bring them back, blow some oxygen into them.
Well,
and
although I'm in a different time right now, just because I'm taking on a different role. I'm in a fundraising role, so it's very different than holding people in a conversation and like really exploring these significant differences and feelings and cultures and borders and all of that pain that we all are dealing with. So I'm just currently, like right now, I'm in a different space. I'm talking to people in positions around the world, around our locale, just to say, what do you think about this work? Shouldn't we want to support it? So it's a very different realm.
I should say that one of the things here is that you and I co-founded this World in Conversation Center over 2 decades ago, right? In 2002. And, as I mentioned, earlier, it grew into the largest center of its kind based at a university anywhere in the world. I mean, by far, not even just there wasn't even a second. It was like we were the biggest, and then way, way, way down is a bunch of others, And that a couple of years ago, we just, the university got restructured and we lost, you lost now because I had stepped back. You took over you've been the director all along, but, you really took over and we lost a significant amount of funding, 70%.
Which is like, if you could pick the worst time to fundraise
in
ever,
human history,
this would be the time.
First off, the worst time to we were, again, 3,000 of these, 90-minute conversations, facilitated conversations about really controversial topics. Imagine right now, anyway, 3,000, every
a better
year.
way to say it is 25 a day every day of the week.
25 a day.
Except Saturday.
Yeah.
So like, that's a lot of dialogues.
Yeah. And so we, of all the time when this organization would be needed, right now, more than ever, and you're in this fundraising mode, or else, it just go away. Mm-hmm. And that's, God, how ironic. I mean, that's the irony of it. Like, how is that possible that in this moment, I mean, you have to laugh at the trickster, the great spirit.
I was thinking the same word, trickster.
Yeah.
It feels like a lot of trickster energy around.
Yeah.
But is there, by the way, I mean, because I can't see the chat, but is there anything we should be responding to?
Does anybody have a question that they want us to
or is there a comment that we should be, or comments that we
well,
should
Eric, a little bit ago, Eric Sell said, we might, you guys might be small, but you're two professors who are influencing hundreds of lives, right? But for some reason, that still doesn't hit me. You know what I mean? Like, it still doesn't, like, I don't know. It's not enough to get me through. Yeah, it's. Hey, Jeff. For some reason, I don't see any. I don't know what questions where I even go to see any questions that are there. So, if you have anything, let me know. I see the check your Slack messages. Oh man, I don't know where my Slack is. Wait, hang on. I gotta find. Mm-hmm. Hang on. Here we go. Shoot. I don't know. Oh, there we go. All right. So here's one for you, Laurie. From Mike. Hey, Michael, your name, it looks like to me it's pronounced Mikhail, but I'm assuming it's Michael. He says, how do you find certain patterns that repeat itself no matter which side that make people be defensive about their stand?
Oh my God. I mean, you just listen. I've had the insane pleasure, if you will, of being in so many conversations. And so at some point, I just started to hear such similar things coming from people that have, different perspectives, and not necessarily in the same moment, sometimes in the same moment, but more profoundly, I would be, having a conversation about Israel-Palestine, and then I'm having a conversation about U.S. race relations, or I'm having a conversation about grief, and realize that there's always a majority group that sort of is like, this is the way to think about it, you'd be like, wait a second, here we are talking about grief, and yet it sounds like this conversation about white privilege, or it sounds like Israelis talking about such and such, right? You just start to see these really different contexts, and yet people taking similar roles and making similar arguments about, and it just, it blew my mind at some point, and then I started to see it everywhere. So I don't know if I'm being able to say much more specifically, but if you keep listening, it's everywhere. and it's so, yeah, it's just everywhere.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. I mean, I watch you point things out like that, day after day, in
I
in
call
the
it,
most unlikeliest places.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
call that a hidden bridge, right? Because when people, are, excuse me, I'm trying to think of a way to, here's, when I remember being in this group where we were talking about race, but then we started talking about disabilities, and somehow relevant. And there was a woman in the conversation who was a black woman, and she was talking about, as an able-bodied person, how she feels in relationship to somebody who has a disability, and she feels like she kind of gets quiet and she steps back and she just doesn't want to step on any toes, and she just did this whole thing, and I was like, oh my God, that sounds like being white in relationship to people of color. And so it's just, why am I saying it? There was a reason I wanted to give that example. The hidden bridge. And so you could, just kind of see that as interesting and funny and whatever in a moment. But really, when people are at odds, those kinds of similarities they're actually unwelcome. People really don't want to think like, oh yeah, I'm doing a thing that you're doing. But for a person like me, a facilitator, I see that there are these commonalities that ultimately can connect people, because you can because even though working with people with disabilities or encountering people with disabilities is different than white people and black people and histories and whatever, but there's something there that all of a sudden changes the game.
Yeah.
And I call it a bridge, and people don't like that. But that's why I call it a hidden bridge. Because it's not common ground. Common ground is something that you're comfortable with. It's like, oh, we all care about our children. That's common ground. No. This is something that you'd rather have in the shadow. But I'm seeing, oh, that's actually similar. And
the shadows blend into one another. Yeah.
Yeah, and what it ultimately it makes meaning. And I won't go into all of that right now, but anyway, that's why I give that example, because I see it all the time where people are taking positions that they claim are so other than them, and I'm like, but you just did that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay, here's one for you. So Gary asks, watching Sam over the years, he's always struck me as a symbolic interactionist. Would Sam say this is one of his go-to sociological perspectives? And so symbolic interactionism being that, that we explain, it talks, it's really understanding how people create shared meaning through our social interactions. I would say...
So the question is, is it to you? The question?
Yeah, well, yeah, but what do you think?
But
really?
wait, but what is the question?
The question is that he has the idea that I just seem like someone who really comes from that orientation.
Huh. I would say you don't know that you do.
Yeah, I would agree, because I would agree.
Yeah, but I mean, I do think that there is that element for sure, and it's pretty cool, like, for someone to be able to point that out like that. But that's definitely not conscious. It's not like you learned that school of thinking and you apply it.
Definitely not.
I don't think so at all.
No, definitely not. Mm-hmm. And not only that, but just as a way, it's just not in my mind. Like, I had to pull it up I had to jump over on my browser and pull up symbolic interactionism, because I was like, wait, what's that again? That's how far off it is for me. But it really is. I mean, that's what I think about all the time, or shared meaning. I mean, it really is something that probably...
Or the other side, meaning unshared meaning, where you just like break down something that is what this group thinks, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is what this means to this group, and you will be taking that apart.
That's because I'm an iconoclast.
Right,
yeah. And especially, if people hold it as sacred, I'm really gonna go after it. I don't know why I do that. Why do I do that?
Because you're a little brother. It's just your way of taunting your older brother.
Who used to beat me up when I was a kid. Yeah. You're right. And so I'm still taunting people, aren't I?
A little bit, but with humor, just like
With
little
humor.
brothers.
Well, also, I did stand-up comedy, right? So the reason I was drawn to stand-up comedy before you knew me, was because I thought like comedians, and that's kind of what they do, right? They take something that we all see, but they throw a spin on it.
Yeah, or especially things that are sacred.
Yeah, especially things that you just go after anything you can for the fun of it. But I also don't take things personally myself. So
Can I just say, I saw a comedian who people would know, and I can't remember his name. It's Matt something. He's a white guy. He looks like he's in his late 20s, early 30s. I don't know. I always see him on TikTok. But anyway, he did this this improv thing where at a show that he was doing, I was watching the other night, where one of the women in the front was like had cancer, stage 4, and she had her head wrapped because and he did this whole thing with her on dying and like humor, but like laughing. I brought her on stage. I mean, I've never seen someone do comedy literally with this person who is terminal. It was
wow,
and it was kind. It was such an interesting.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just want to say that.
Well, that's like me. Like, remember the time that when I do that sometimes in class with students, and remember we had but I have such love for people. I have such deep love for people that you just know you don't know it. And that's why I have to be careful, because if you know me, you know how much I'm loving my students. If I'm having fun with them and joking with them, it's because I have such deep
appreciation.
Oh
yeah.
God, such appreciation, man. But if you don't know that, I'm thinking about the student. I forget what his name. Sharif, I think was his name, who had the stutter years ago, and how I brought him up to the front, and then he ended up working. He was a TA for us. Remember? And by the time he graduated, he was a facilitator for World in Conversation for I think like 2 years. And by the time he graduated, his stutter was almost gone. He was just really talking so much and getting so comfortable, and it was and it had been brought up by a brain tumor. But anyway, I remember just how awesome he was. And anyway, okay. All right, here's another one. Laurie, did you experience the feminist... this is really cool. How did you experience the feminist movement?
It's so funny, because just earlier today I was talking about Carol Gilligan's book, In a Different Voice, which was really... I read that in the mid-'80s, and it was one of the few books that I remember, because I don't remember books like that, but what it helped me to see was the way women develop their sense of themselves in the context of relationships, just in a general sense of a difference between typically men and women, to be simplistic about it. And that was an awakening for me. And I think at the same time in my life, in my early 20s, so for me, feminism was just seeing the role that my mom played in my family, which was a stay-at-home mom, and the dynamics, between the boys and the girls in my family. That's what feminism was. I was waking up to that, but it was for me more in the context of what became romantic relationships, right? I didn't feel in my work disempowered, even though I think I was being feminized, if you will. Like, I think I was being treated like a girl, if you will, but I didn't feel it through most of my life. So anyway, that in the 80s, it was really waking up to the way gender was playing out in relationship between me and men. So men and women for me. And that was what I was that's how I woke up. Well, that was awakening for me.
If you remember, well, my graduate program for my PhD, there were a lot of feminists in the program. Women who were very strong women. I'm going to say feminists. They were just strong women. There were no women in the program who weren't, just powerful and smart and strong and thinking about these issues a lot. And I just encountered some things that I had never, that were new to me. And by the way, Jason, I'm originally from Ohio, Toledo, Ohio, and then I went to New Jersey for my PhD, and that's where I met Laurie, who's from Central Jersey. But if you remember,
I would say, can I say about
Yeah.
you? I experienced you as, just like strangely and profoundly egalitarian. With me, I've never met a man who was so egalitarian. I don't really know a better word to say, but meaning who I think treated me so much like a full person. I don't think I knew what it was like to be treated as a full person. That was my experience of you, Sam.
yeah,
Yeah, like I just want to say that. So while you were being challenged by, the women around you who were, thinking in particular ways, you were actually already, in my point of view, from my experience, somebody who was just so respectful of the full person of women. And I don't know, you grew up with a single mom who was, your dad died and she took over, his business, and she was a force to be reckoned with in her very humble way. So
yeah, she was.
You have that also.
No, and my sister, who would in a million years would never in a million years call herself a feminist, and Nancy, right? So this is a crazy story. This is the kind of stuff that drives me, right? Hey, by the way, El Pidio entered the chat. He just donated $5 to the channel.
Oh, that's awesome.
So, but my sister lived in rural Kentucky, and they had a volunteer fire department. This was in the mid-'70s.
And your sister right now is 86?
Yeah.
So a different generation.
Yeah, different.
Sam had his mom had 3 kids and then a break, and then late in life she had 2 more, and Sam was the youngest. So anyway, this would be more of like Sam's aunt.
So they had volunteer fire department. This was a rural area outside of Bowling Green, Kentucky, and they got together. They built a firehouse. Who
did that?
They bought a couple trucks, and she wanted to be a volunteer firefighter. Well, they were just like not having it. The men were not having that, and she's like, why wouldn't I be a volunteer firefighter? I'm gonna do that. So she did all the training, and they didn't want her, man, and she just fought through it. And she, again, never the feminist, would in a million years wouldn't call herself a feminist, right? But she went through it. And this was the kind of thing for me. I didn't even understand what feminism was, but what I understood was that men and women can do the same things. I mean, men are on average are going to be stronger than women and that sort of thing, but like that's just secondary. Like, women just pushing forward and pushing the boundaries, right? So here, even when they don't think that they are. And I remember this house caught on fire in the middle of the night, and down the road, and she got the phone call, and boom, and then we just woke up at 3 a.m, jumped in the back of the pickup truck and went, right? And did I ever tell you this story?
Me?
I think I told you this story.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, yes, I love this story.
Yeah, and they were fighting this fire, and they ran out of. They only had one. They didn't have the tanker truck yet, filled with water, and they almost got it out, but they didn't. They ran out of water, and so then this big house just burned down. It was a big house up on a hill kind of thing, but they were still, while the house was burning down, they refilled the tanker and they brought it back, and so they were just kind of almost practicing. And so they put my sister on the hose, or she volunteered. She wanted to be on the hose, and there were 2 men that were holding the hose, this big hose, man. They're so powerful, and they let go. My sister, man, and she maybe at the time weighed like 130, 140. She was just bouncing around, man, holding onto that hose, and it was just taking her. She was being lifted off the ground, but she didn't let go, man. And I was standing right 10 feet away.
And you were how old?
I was now, at that point in time, probably 13 years old. And my mom was there too, right? And my mom was, we all were just like rooting for her. Not even rooting, we didn't even know. We just watched this happen. It was like, fuck, man, these guys, I can't believe they did that. And, but she hung on. And then they after about 15 seconds or so, or as my recollection, they then grabbed the hose and then they were okay. And that
It's like
changed.
an initiation for her.
It was like an initiation for her. They were like, and then at that point in time, they had to say, all right, man, you're one of the, you're on the team, right? And my mom was so pissed at them. She was calling these guys all sorts of names, not to their faces, but to her. And my mom, who would never call herself a feminist, in fact, she hated feminism, right? But she was the most radical feminist I ever knew in my life. Same with my sister, right? And because that's the kind of badass thing a feminist does, you know? And it's like, yeah, I'm going to come in the door and be part of this. I'm going to be part of your boys' club. And like, just, you know.
Only just because she wanted to serve in that way.
She wanted to serve in that way, you know? And she was kind of a badass anyway. I mean, you know, this is the things that she did. But the point being, I think I just learned, I grew up with equality of men and women. I never questioned it. It just was not part of, because I just saw my mom doing everything she did and everything that happened. And so when I got around then suddenly, you know, like all these feminists who had all this theory about stuff, I was so confused because I just was like, wait, I don't, you know, like, I don't.
What am I not doing?
Yeah, wait, I don't get it. Like, you mean there's, what? Like, and then, you know, people, sometimes some of the other graduate students or different people would say, like, tell me, like, you're not getting it. And I'm like, what do you mean what am I not getting? Like, I was so confused about that, about those kinds of issues. But anyway, that's just me responding to you, saying that was your experience of me from a young age. I think that's a lot. Sometimes that happens with the race conversation as well. Sometimes people really understand it much more than we give them credit for, but we throw so many things out, we obfuscate it, and we confuse people. And then they think it's far more complicated than it is. And it's like, you know, you're already 95% there, so don't worry about the other 5%, because it's fine. The other 5% is just rhetoric. If you can get the 90 or 95% where you really do see people as lovely beings, and you know, that's fine. You don't need to have the rhetoric. So, all right, listen. But at the same time, there is the whole feminist theory stuff. Gary said in the chat that it's really eye-opening, and it still is.
It is. I mean, just something that wouldn't be something that you would have in your experience. I do think one thing that opened definitely something that opened my eyes was when I read a book that had all the pronouns changed to she, and, you know, from he, because I grew up knowing that, you know, he was the singular pronoun. And then I read something, you know, that a feminist had written about, and I was like, wow, that is so different when it says she, right? So I mean, I don't know, it's not necessarily, that's not theoretical, but it's a little different than it being well, I guess it was experiential, right?
Yeah.
And that was really deep. And so I think when you read, you know, texts of anything, it certainly it's eye-opening, because someone's like, wait, look at this. You've never looked at it like this before, you know? So yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with that too.
Yeah. Jason said he had that done to him.
He had
the hose thing.
Wait,
400 pounds per square inch.
So, wait, I didn't hear what you said.
Jason said he had that done to him also, like on the hose.
Oh, I thought he read a book that had she and pronouns.
Oh, yeah, sorry, yeah. Hey, by the way, I'm going to tell a story, and then I want to respond to just LOL. You remember, I mean, we were really, you know, you mentioned taking my class, right? That's where we met. and it's funny to talk about it now at this age because people see me. If I say, "Oh yeah, Laurie was a student of mine," right? So they see like me now,
right?
But you were 21, I was 25. We were.
Yeah, you were a baby.
I was a baby. You were a baby. I mean, that's why we met. You came to my office, and because you thought I was kind of a jerk, and then it turns out I was
just
a jerk.
that you were annoying.
I was annoying. Turns out I was annoying, but nonetheless. But anyway, we kind of caught some as we got at the semester. We got to the end and of the semester, and we kind of caught feelings for one another without wanting to and realizing it. It was one of those things. So then, but I remember. I'm going to tell this story so you could say something about it. But at some one point in time, I said, listen, to you, I don't remember if it was before the semester was over or after the semester was over.
There's a part of me that's like, what's he going to say right now?
Oh, no. It was the thing when I say, there's this thing. It's like power. And,
that.
Yeah. Like, we got to really think about this. And you were.
No, wait. Let me just say, you said to me, we need to have this conversation. So can we have this conversation about power? This was before the semester ended, and I said, what about power? And you said, well, there's unequal power between us, and so that's the conversation you're referring to.
Yeah, and I got done. Like okay, So we have to. Think of it. I don't know if this can work or whatever.
Right,
and what did you? You laughed at me, right? You was like, dude, you don't have any power over me at all. You got no power in this relationship. Trust me.
No. Yeah. I did not say you have no power. I just was like, wait, you have no power over me, just that way. But on one hand, it was true. I felt that. I didn't feel disempowered, etc. Yeah. But then, of course, as time goes on and you learn things about life, it was like, well, there was more to that conversation that you were trying to have than I realized at the time,
Or that I realized, both of us. Mm-hmm. I mean, now we can look back at it, but both of us were very respectful in the way, and we didn't. Yeah. We went very, very slowly in our relationship.
No, but not just. I shouldn't say no. You were just I would just say you were a very respectful person who treated me very like a partner in conversation. That's what it was. That's what really we were doing, was talking about all these things, and you were valuing me in that way. Well, that was a very unique experience for me.
Yeah, but the thing is, I had this sociological analysis, but you had this psychological take that I had never encountered in my life. Mm-hmm. You had questions and insights and thoughts and perspectives that I had never ever encountered, mm-hmm. and a level of depth of understanding of human beings, at the more micro mm-hmm. or meso level, that for me was
meso.
Well, I don't know, in between, I don't know, but that so we were equal in that sense. Mm-hmm. I mean,
all I'm saying absolutely. Is I felt that as unique, unique. So,
yeah.
But so wait, just like, what are you laughing at?
It's someone, the Dudester in the chat just said, "Oh, I just realized that you're in the room right behind me." Well, it's just the way the setup is. Well, the setup is that over here is the screen.
Oh wait, I just saw myself for the first time.
Yeah. I try to stay in front of you, but it's just like, it's kind of easy to be there, and Laurie can see the screen, and there's a camera on her.
So I'm looking at Sam right there.
Yeah, even though it looks like, so.
Yeah, it is kind of weird.
All right, well, listen, I don't know if we have any other questions.
So.
Wait, I do. I did want to respond to something that Just LOL said. Asked me to please discuss racial differences in IQ. That's an alternative hypothesis to racial disparities, and I think that I have actually dug into this far more than most sociologists have. Like whenever some new thing comes up, I dig in. I want to read it. People have sent me things. I research things that people are trying to figure out, you know. And so I'm not going to say, I would say far more than probably most sociologists, because I do this race work, right? So I really want to try to understand differences, not in terms of race. It's not about race. It's about biogeographical. It's about areas of the planet. You know, is there some kind of difference that is notable, is significant, right? Statistically significant, and we just it just don't seem to find anything that's biological. It's just we just keep going back to the sociological piece. So there is in individuals biological differences, right? I mean, for sure, some people are more inclined or better suited to think in certain ways than others, but we just don't see it across the board.
Wait, you mean there's individual differences?
There's within any geographical population, ancestry population, right? Biogeographical population, meaning a population of people in a particular geographic region. So whether it's like North Africa or South Africa or, Central Asia or East Asia or West Asia or Northern Asia, whatever, like we have these areas of the world, and that's kind of, as I look at the map behind, wait, hang on, I can go here. Like all these areas, there's not a race thing. It's just that because all the population groups, they blend into one another. So you can't draw distinct lines between population groups to say like, hey, there's this racial group or that racial group, and then we can test them and figure out if there are these differences. They all blend together. And so that's our...
So then if you're talking about black people in the U.S., you're saying you can't talk about it because it's not a category that... what are you saying?
Well, because black people in the U.S. are... So hang on, I'm going to use my finger here, right? I got to do this. Black Americans are from this area right here. They're West Central Africans, almost across the board, because that's where slaves came from in the Western world. So if we're looking at biological differences, the biological differences are going to go back dozens and dozens, maybe hundreds of generations. They didn't just start. You don't have a biological difference that just starts in one or two generations. It's gonna go back a long ways. Mm-hmm. And so we're gonna be able to see these kinds of things. And
if
we
they
don't.
exist.
Yeah, we just don't. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the differences we see really boil down to sociology.
Meaning
that, differences in the way people think, the way people the difference is the way people are socialized, the way people are trained to think. Are you trained to think to answer questions on exams, or are you trained to think in ways that expand and open your mind? That kind of thing. It's like Quaker schools, or like the various schools that just really teach students to just be really open in their thinking and creative in their thinking, versus kind of like a Korean way, which is like answer these questions on these tests and figure out how to do that and do it quickly, so it's so we see those kinds of differences, but we just don't see. Does that make sense
to me?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, it makes sense to me. I don't know. I mean, I feel like you might just also just be talking about variables like educational opportunities, class.
Educational opportunities, class, just like we see that, the kind of scores that we have on IQ tests and are all have sociological, are impacted by sociological variables. Yeah. And so it doesn't, and the differences that we see are really insignificant. Yeah. All right, what else do we have?
Well, I guess my question is, because I think we might be almost out of time, right?
Yeah.
But did you get any answers from me to what you were not revealing in terms of our topic tonight? Because we were just
I think I did. I think it's just that
By the way, your head showing my visibility of me behind you is so weird.
Yeah, okay, so I have to really just be.
You do, because it's
All right.
very strange.
Okay, so I'm going to see, did you answer this question for me? Mm-hmm. How do you maintain your curiosity in a time when so many people are claiming, hey, these are really dire times, we need to get in and we need to try to fix things that we think are right or wrong? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I answered the question about curiosity, but it doesn't mean that I also not paying attention. I am paying attention to precedents that we set and norms that change, and that's at the level of the presidency and it's and operations of our government, and it's also at the level of people, right? I mean, just the citizens, because some norms that in a way I think are different is we're seeing that people who are really disruptive and fight really hard and are really competitive and aggressive win. You know what I mean? And that's establishing a norm, right? To say like, no, the collaboration isn't really that great of an idea. The way you get ahead in the world is just to fight, and even, you know, and twist the truth and all of these things and just get control and win. That's a change of a set of norms, I think, culturally that I see and I worry about, because we're just at the beginning of how that impacts generations of people, right? I'm also, you know, noticing, you know, when you have just at the presidential level, right, you have a set of norms as to the way the presidency operates, and, you know, over generations of presidents, and then when you do it differently, okay, do it differently because maybe it's better. But if you do it differently just because it serves oneself, that's concerning, right? So I'm paying attention to those things. It's not that I don't think that there's worrisome actions that are happening, but I also think like I can't know. None of us can know what. It's always like
what the impact is.
What the impact, because there's unintended consequences of everything, good and bad, right? I mean, you always say that too, where it's like the thing that, you know, I don't know, there's a crisis, but then there's an opportunity. So
no, the thing that we might imagine, you know, some people might imagine right now is the worst possible thing in the world that's happening, you know, the government's doing or trying to do, might turn out to be the most important, the best possible thing. And like I don't mean that. That's not like, you know, hey, let's just smoke a joint and imagine, let our brains go somewhere, you know, like, no, truly but I think, but at the same time, the world, I think, and I think this is kind of what I've learned from you, there are many different kinds of people that are called upon in this world. And you and I just happen to have these roles that we play that are also really important. And maybe we just have to hold that down. Maybe that's kind of what
that might be, I couldn't even go that far. I don't know. You know what, like, because I don't think, I've had the experience in my life of not really directing my life, not directing my life. I'll just talk about like the vocational aspect of it. I haven't directed it at all. And I don't think, and I think it's my failure and my weakness that has been, if any positive impact has happened for people. I think it's based on things I couldn't do, and therefore I acted in another way. Right? Like, simply, not to be cryptic, but like, I'm not a teacher and I couldn't teach a class, but I was teaching. I was in the role. And what I did instead was start talking to students and asking them to talk and talk to each other. And when there was something that I didn't know, which was all the time, I just asked them what they thought. And so therefore my weakness became my strength, because the strength was in all of these people talking to each other. We learned so much and continue to learn. So whatever, it goes on and on from there. But I think that's, yeah, I don't have the idea of like, therefore now this is what I'm doing in the world. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. And I do deeply know that the things that hurt us and hurt us, if they don't break us, because some people do get broken, but things that hurt us and challenge us and also create other things that we would have never guessed. And anybody that's lost anybody, which is most of us on the planet, that there's something beautiful that comes out of the pain. And you wouldn't trade it, you wouldn't let go of the person because now you have this thing, but it's just part of that structure of life that is so annoying. Why does it have to be that way?
Yeah.
But it is that way. So anyway, I just, I don't know, one step at a time, one day at a time. Your sister was called to be
grab
a
the fire hose
in that one moment, and like that's it. Just be ready to.
Yeah.
Answer the call, whenever that is, today, tomorrow, for just an hour. Yeah, I mean that's it. We're really kind of that small.
Yeah, that's cool.
And yet, when we connect to other people in a functional way, more happens. But, and we never know what that is either. But
okay, awesome. I think we can just cut here.
All right.
Next, we'll come back on and take on a different conversation.
But this time, maybe we'll be looking at each other, or is it always going to be like that?
I don't know. We'll see how the setup is.
It's funny. I mean, I'm seeing your face, so that's fine. But you're not.
Well, that's all that matters.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. It's just weird for now that it's been revealed that I'm sitting behind you, like we're on a flight of some sort.
Yeah, you're in the place where you should be.
Yeah, right. I'm behind. Yep, exactly, behind you, walking steps behind you.
Well, that statement that behind every successful man is a powerful woman. That's so funny. So we're just embodying that.
Yeah, that's it.
Sociologizing that. I just gotta laugh. God, I need to laugh. We laugh a lot together. That's good. Yeah. All right, listen.
All
We're
right.
gonna. Yeah. All right. So, how is the back of my head, by the way? Is it all right?
Yeah, it looks pretty good.
All right. All right. All right. Hey, listen, we're gonna head out. We do have class tomorrow. We only have class for 35 minutes, maybe 40 minutes. We're gonna get I'm gonna have students answer questions, by the way. Hey, by the way, what you just said right there about you're not able to teach because you the way you taught was you learned you just had to ask students questions.
Because I couldn't teach. Yeah.
Yeah, because you couldn't teach. Like you just felt like you couldn't stand up and say things to people. You had nothing to say. And so that's where I learned the value of doing what I do.
You're my best student.
Yeah, I am your best student. Yeah, that's pretty cool. By the way, a little bit ago you said fight, and people were reminding that was Trump's thing. You remember?
Right. Did I say that? Fight.
Yeah, he used to. Yeah, we're gonna fight. All right, so, So anyway, tomorrow, same thing. I'm gonna do kind of what I did on the last semester, where I asked students what they're getting out of the class. So what'd you get out of it? What are you getting so far? Like I want to really ask them, instead of me answering their questions, I want to ask their questions. So there we go. So I guess we can just kill it. Say the infamous words, be well. Yeah. Thanks, Laurie Lynn.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone. Okay. Be well. See you.